Oh, the credit card blues sure will get you down. Just it will.
Credit, debt, loans, leases, leverage, call it what you want. The UK is amassing more of it, and that raises questions about long-term stability. The Bank of England is keeping an eye on lending to Britain's plastic-happy consumers.
What seems to be happening is that lenders are willing to make credit cheaper and expand the supply of it into new areas. And that's why it's an amber warning light for us, because our job is to make sure the lenders are safe. And the main risk to the wider economy here actually come through the lenders rather than the borrowers.
The regulator has told banks to hold more capital, one way of cooling the market. It will also stress test potential losses. A bit of history. This is British households' debt relative to their income. It rose before the financial crisis, fell sharply, and now it's starting to rise again. That includes mortgages though, which have been pretty steady. The problem is consumer lending, here in red. That rose by about 10% over the past year, much faster than household income. Credit card debt is growing quickly, here in yellow, but the real eye-catcher, this blue line. Car finance has been growing at over 15% a year since 2013. The reason for that is a fundamental change in how we're all buying our cars. Well, we're not really buying them at all. It's boosted business here, a busy showroom owned by Pendragon, a big dealership group.
There's a whole generation of people being brought up on with a different mentality, and so if you look at a device like that, my kids, and they're not kids, 30-somethings, would think it very, very strange that you'd go and buy one of those things. What they're looking forward to is the end of a contract, so when they can refresh it with the latest one. Well, why would it be any different in cars?
4 out of 5 new cars are now financed with something called a personal contract purchase. That means a monthly payment for 2 or 4 years, then you upgrade to the latest model or pay a pre-agreed lump sum and keep the car.
Making a decision to buy a car is actually now a smaller decision, psychologically, because people are committing to make smaller payments for a shorter term, and whereas historically somebody thinking about spending £15,000 now is probably thinking about making payments of £240, £250, and then doing the same thing again potentially 2 or 3 years later, but getting a new car, a refreshed car at that time. So it's just increased the cycle, or what we describe in the industry as the churn.
But people actually tend to keep paying their car loans. They need their cars to get to work or to get the kids to school. A slump in used car values could mean losses for lenders, but the central bank thinks even a 30% drop would only mean a small hit for the banks. But cars aren't all we've been shopping for. Credit card debt is on the up, with longer and longer interest-free periods. Personal loans have been getting cheaper and cheaper. Overall, credit has been more easily available as banks compete for our business. There are 2 big questions here. What does this build-up mean for the banking system, for financial stability? And what about the UK economy? Would a slowdown in debt-fueled spending mean hazards ahead? Thank you. Tim Ballantyne used credit cards to start a business, but his debts mounted after a serious accident left him unable to work. He's now tackling that with the help of the Money Advice Service.
I wish I could explain better why I haven't sort of dealt with it sooner. It seems such an easy thing to do. When I contacted the Debt Change charity, they went through a budget for me, told me what I already knew, which was that it was unsustainable and there was absolutely no way I could pay these debts, and that I should write to these people, and gave me a form letter to do so. And yet it's taken me 3 or 4 months actually to get around to doing that. It is just stupidity. I think burying your head in the sand is very common.
More consumers are only paying the minimum balances on their credit cards, and the Bank of England last week reported signs that default rates are starting to rise.
You look back over the last few years, it's very typical for loss rates on consumer debt to be more than 10 times those on mortgage lending. And that's why banks' exposures to consumer debt generally are a key driver of how strong they are, of how resilient they are, as we've seen so many times in the past. Lending standards in this market can go from the seemingly fairly responsible to pretty reckless fairly quickly. And that's why, after a period of rapid growth, we're taking action to make sure this market evolves in a sustainable and prudent way.
Is this house of cards already teetering? Losses on consumer credit mount when unemployment rises. It's still at multi-decade lows for now. But tighter credit is only one pressure on households. Real wages are falling, saving rates are at record lows. Consumer spending, the powerhouse of the economy, is on shaky foundations.
They'll keep sending them cards until you get yourself in so much debt you can't get out.